I was doing healing today, I thought, I have a matter of course now, and I think I've been doing this for years, where automatically, every evening, get in my zone, I get into, well, not every evening, of course there are evenings where it's just not possible because I can't get in my zone, or I'm too tired, or I'm too sick myself to be a healer. But for as long as I can remember in this center, almost the full 18 years since Paddy arrived in it, every evening we have stopped at some point before bed. Like the last thing I do is healing. And sometimes the healing, distance healing, takes the form of just sitting quietly in the network and infusing it with positive energy. Sometimes it takes the form of actual pulling out negative energy. Sometimes it's just a sitting quiet and redistributing energy so that things get balanced. And while there isn't a focus on any one person, the network itself is treated like an entity. And in all of those years, I have always been the throat chakra of that entity, the speaking, talking, channeling voice of that entity. And most of the work would be done on, for example, the heart center of that entity. Occasionally, there is a need to sit with a specific client and do distance healing on that client, not on a once-off, but on a regular basis. And sometimes the healing just is nothing more than a prayer, which is always the most universal or common frequency that makes an energy body accessible. Now, the reason all of this became a last thing at night before I go to sleep kind of thing is because most of my clients are in South Africa, and by the time I go to bed at like 11 o'clock, they're already in bed, they're more relaxed, they're basically asleep and more accessible. There have been times where I've had to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in order to do distance healing on a client who is completely inaccessible in their aware or awake state, and I have to wait for them to go to sleep in some other part of the world in order to do work on them then. Or wait for them to be so completely relaxed in the sleep state that I can actually access them at all. So, just while I'm talking, I want you to check for yourself. How accessible are you? Now, you've all heard me talk about Garth and doing healing with Garth, and one of the things that he does is that he describes people who are not entirely accessible as being armored. They have their armor on. And when I twisted my foot and my ankle, and I was so bloody ana about the whole thing, and of course the universe had the final joke because it was just cert. I phoned Garth and I had him move my appointment, come immediately, sort the foot out. Not because I don't want to just cert, but because I'd already lined up so many things to do. And the universe, it kicked ass, because just sitting, not in meditation, not in teaching, not in my zone, to be human and just cert, fuck, it was difficult. No, I didn't want to just sit. Me, this human doing, who is so accustomed to putting her foot down, big time, loudly, emphatically, even powerfully, even spiritually one might add, had to put her foot up and shut up and sit. Very difficult. For me, it was get it sorted as quickly as possible. I will sit when I choose to sit. I do not want the universe telling me when to sit. And I definitely don't want something like a twisted ankle defining and deciding that now is when I should sit. Needless to say, I learned the hard way that if I don't pay attention, and I've done this before in 2010 on pilgrimage in India with Sonali, where I got knocked by a car and proceeded to travel through India for 2 weeks on crutches, using those crutches, didn't miss a thing, happily moved, kept moving, must keep moving, and then suffered later. So my body did the same thing. I suffered later for pushing too hard, for wanting to do everything regardless, for being too bloody busy, So this healing, this working, this being present, it requires that we be accessible, not just to spirit, and not only to spirit, but to each other. So check for yourself, how accessible are you in terms of healing? How accessible are you in terms of receiving healing? And then for today's meditation, I want us to go there. I very rarely do individual healing sessions in the center because it is so very easy for me to balance your chakras here, put you in your car, send you out the gate, and just as you're turning left back into Lena Ahrens, somebody comes speeding along and you will get unbalanced. Chakras will go wonky again. An instantaneous thought, anything that can push you or into lapse. So it's easy to unbalance your chakras. The only time I do this kind of hands-on chakra balancing healing is when somebody is ill. And then most of the time, because you are part of the network, you receive energy healing as and when. And if you are sick, or when you are sick, I know that this sickness is something you have consciously manifested for yourself, because by and large your immune system is being revitalized with prana or high frequency energy on a regular basis in meditation and in network healing. But to become more conscious of our accessibility to that healing, to become more conscious of our accessibility, the ease with which we receive high frequency energy transmissions from the meditations. And just before I forget, a note about the energy transmissions of these meditations. The energy transmissions of the meditations use the instrument of my voice for delivery, not the instrument of my body, not the instrument of my mind, and most assuredly not the instrument of my presence. From the time I have opened the center, the voice is the instrument. And the voice is being designed and trained to permeate to the cellular level of your body and implant a frequency there. Those of you who have done this group of meditations for so long, your bodies know my voice. They can zone out just with me going, so take a deep breath in, get grounded, get fully present, relax. This is the training, Pavlov's dog's training. But the voice is the instrument that is used to transmit the energy that is given so generously. So every chant, every meditation that is conducted via the voice has exactly the same energy transmissions. For those of you who do not believe in spirit, but do realize and know that the universe is made up of energy, it works in exactly the same way as for those who do believe in angels and guides and masters. So whether you believe in them or not, they are energy, and exactly the same energy transmission applies via the instrument of the voice. The important thing is to make yourself accessible and to receive those energy transmissions, which unfortunately, and I do empathize and sympathize with you, means listening to the meditations, listening to the channeling. Now, I get messages from total strangers saying, I listened to this or I listened to that, and it's usually a chat or a meditation, and just listening to you changed my life. I took this thing that you said and it worked so well, and now I'm using everything. I'm listening to you every day, and every day you inspire me to change something else and change something else and change something else. And there's these total strangers who are having a spiritual experience, who are walking a spiritual pathway without ever having met the Guru. It's a bit like me, walking the spiritual pathway without ever having met Shiv until I was ready to meet him. But it takes that actual listening, and listening receptively. How accessible are you? On the physical plane, we are encouraged to not be accessible at all. We are encouraged to build these brick walls, to put up the fences and the barbed wire and electrify the fences, and to just grow things, thick hedges, to put lots of stairs, to put in burglar guards and cameras, and every kind of security defense mechanism is in place. This center has them as well. The physical plane, we are encouraged to defend and protect ourselves. But energetically, all that, the only thing that has direct access to us in every moment is self. And the universal intelligence that self is made up of. So it's divinity, it's this universal energy. First and foremost, it is self. And so our intentions, our higher frequencies allow us to outgrow a range of things that we no longer require and shouldn't come knocking, while giving us a space of sanctity, sanctuary, protection, to be accessible to frequencies that are higher than we are. And as immodest as it may sound, for a pathetic little human doing in Durban, when I am sitting here, channeling angels and guides and masters and Shiv, I am a higher frequency than everything else in my planet, in my world, in my universe, in this group. That is the instrument. And being accessible to that is a choice you made by attending. So open up, people. Open up. Let's open up everything at a cellular level. Let's see how accessible you are. Let's go to the deepest possible level of you. Because if you're getting stuck, if you're wondering why things are passing you by, if you're not moving as quickly as you'd like to inside out, not the world is doing its own thing, you. If you're not as stable and as clear as you'd like to be, if you're not feeling as strong as you want to be, if you haven't gotten rid of all of those bad habits and patterns that pull you down, if you haven't cleaned up your act, why not? Cure? The fun times are here. So let's go there. And I'm saying this to everybody now. Now is the time. Let's go there. The best possible vibrations are here. Make it happen. I said to a student the other day, if you don't do the work this time around, I'm dumping you. I am going to dump you. I love you and I'm going to dump you anyway. You can't be my student anymore because now you are wasting energy. And I can't do this. I can't work. I can't do your work. I can't do your work. I can do my work. And if you're not doing your work that meets my work, then we're not working together in harmony. And then I can't live with you in your universe. I must go back to my universe where I live with myself in harmony. You see, when we meet others and when God meets us, where we are, it's to create harmony. And thank God it meets me where I am. I don't have to climb 9,000 steps on pilgrimage to a monastery at the top of a mountain that to meet God. I can sit down here, put my feet up, rest, relax, breathe, meditate, and meet God here, provided I am accessible. That I make myself accessible. Our diaries are full of inaccessible, too busy. I was too busy to sit, too busy to give the universe a moment of rolling in ecstasy at my feet. Took a while, got there, it rolled. I tell you, it rolled. I rolled my eyes at it rolling in ecstasy at my feet, but it rolled in ecstasy at my feet. And I had these moments of total bliss. I wasn't on anything. I was totally sober. I was of sound mind at the time. It was lovely and funny. It's funny when spirit plays these games. So how accessible are you? If you were an actual architectural structure called a building, what would you be? Would you be like a maze with several hedges or several walls creating an intricate pattern to the heart of you? Or would you just be a series of concentric circles where the heart of you is locked in at the middle and the world is happening outside and you can't get out and it can't get in? Or is it glass? Do you have layers of glass, fragile, having to peek through them and see a distorted view? If you were an architectural structure, what would you be? How would you look? Are there portals everywhere? Are there doors and windows all open? Or maybe you're one of those structures that's all dark glass, that reflects the world back at itself and nothing can see in. So what kind of building are you? Charmaine, what kind of building are you?
Well, I think I've gone through so many different types, almost all what you've said.
All of those?
Yeah, but I think now a lot of the armor has shifted.
You see, we've been doing that work. What kind of building are you, Maris?
I have no idea.
No idea. Yeah, because we don't stop to think about ourselves as buildings. Yeah, and if we were buildings, do we have lots and lots of windows and open or the curtains closed, What kind of building are you? I mean, I often say to Alicia, because she lived in Paris and she loves the city as I do, you go be the Eiffel Tower. Tower over everything. Straddle that space that you're in. Overlook the Seine. And remember, it stands tall because it is flexible. It is flexible. When the wind blows, the Eiffel Tower creaks. And all of its nuts and bolts are slightly looser than it should be. Because if they tightened it completely, it would fall down. You get all tight ass in the world, you fall down. Have some loose screws, you get through things with a bit of flexibility, able to adapt to what is happening. And some people are just skyscrapers. They're like always reaching for heaven. They're always going to God. I call them skyscrapers because they have to go to God for everything. Like God's in charge, God's to blame, God's going to do this, God's going to do that. The skyscrapers, they're always looking heavenward and not checking where they're putting their feet. And those people are completely inaccessible to healing generally because they're waiting on God to pitch up and do the work. Those are the people who have excessive expectations of how energy healing should feel, what it should do for them, how it should serve them. And then you go, okay, they're totally inaccessible. By the time I get through all of your expectations, in order to find you and do the healing required at a cellular level and pull out all of the stuff in the chakras, it's too draining, exhausted. Rather, you should stay home and drink lots of bicarbonate of soda water and clean yourself out first. You're full of shit. This is the skyscrapers. And then we get the people who live in the underground, right? The people who ride the metro, non-stop riding the metro, going nowhere, just riding the metro, living in the underground, out of sight, can't see them, beneath the radar, don't want anybody to know they're there. They're like the metro stations themselves. You come up for air every now and again and then disappear underground again. What kind of building are you? Maybe you're an airport. People constantly coming and going. The sanctuary feels like that sometimes. Like we're in an airport. Something arrives, something leaves, something else arrives. Constant coming and going, mingling, greeting, farewelling, lots of stuff. Occasionally good shopping, but an airport, constant flow, constant busyness and movement, and unless you're stuck, not quite present there. Always aware of being in a transition. Always aware of going, coming from somewhere and going. And never quite gone either. Maybe you're like a post office, waiting on a delivery. There's always stuff coming in to be sent somewhere. Always stuff coming in, but it's not for you. It's not for you. The stuff that's coming in is to be distributed to everybody else. There's no sense of anticipation of everything that's coming in. It's only that it's to be distributed to others. So the post office, charity shop, maybe you're like that. Maybe you're that kind of building. Or maybe you're a bank where everything is in a vault and everything is kept safe and sound and hoarded because somebody might come just in case and ask for it at some point. So we pay it interest regularly, go check it out, charge horrendous fees in order to keep it there because it comes at a price, Okay, maybe you're a bank. How accessible are you? If you were a building, can I walk right in? Make yourself comfortable, Fatih. She's not a walk right in. She's not even like a takeaway. Not a drive-through. What kind of building are you? Come on, everybody. Let's hear some interesting buildings because I haven't covered all the bases yet. Is anybody like a temple? Anybody like a church? God resides here. Anybody like a monastery? High on up, silent, disciplined. Anybody like a hospital? Sirens always running, emergency room always awake, always some sense of living and dying. What kind of building are you? And are you accessible? Do you have a mat outside your building where I can wipe my feet and walk right in? Must have a mat. Wipe your feet first. Leave the dirt outside. Leave the baggage outside. Leave the cow dung outside. We changed bullshit to cow dung, by the way, because we thought we were being overly feminist, that it's always bullshit and not cow dung. So we decided in the age of the divine feminine, we let the divine feminine take responsibility for the stuff that doesn't work. So, how accessible are you? How closed off are you? To what extent is COVID, with social distancing and masking and disconnecting, encouraged that being enclosed, inaccessible, disconnect? And maybe we're all just too busy to ask these questions, right? Maybe we're just too crazy and too busy. But I think it's important that we stop every now and again and ask ourselves some important questions that have got to do with connectedness, with oneness, with the use of authentic power. If we're operating from the crown chakra, then these are all the right questions. If we're operating from the crown chakra and we're wanting to use the authentic power of the creative essence that comes from the core of Shakti, then these are questions that we must ask. How accessible am I to being present, to receiving, to being this channel, to healing? How accessible am I to this abundance that I am manifesting? And it's not even a question of do I believe, because nobody wants you to believe. Don't believe anything. The Buddha said that. Don't believe anything. Throw out all of your belief systems. But if you're going to set an intention, then maybe you should be accessible to that intention. Maybe you should be accessible to all the opportunities that give rise to that intention and from that intention. Maybe you should be accessible to all of the challenges that that intention will bring. Maybe you should just be holistically available and accessible to the intention, whatever that statement is. Just being accessible, available. Not so busy, your diary is not so full. You don't have such a big schedule that you cannot be accessible to energy. And of course, accessibility is not free for all. Accessibility is in accordance with your current baseline frequency. I am accessible at this baseline frequency. Accessible, meaning I can be reached. It's like a phone number. I can be reached at that phone number. If somebody phoned me at your phone number, you'd have to give them my phone number. So your phone number is your identity. Your frequency is your identity. You are accessible there. What frequency are you accessible at? If you are predominantly accessible at the base chakra, this means that despite all of these years of doing these meditations and moving with the group to this space of I am soul, you are still tuning into everybody's survival mechanism, and you are operating in the mass consciousness from the 4 primary archetypes, light and shadow selves, meaning you're buying into the duality of the mass consciousness. And then you have to stop and ask, why am I accessible there? Who needs to reach me there? Am I as powerful as I am soul if I am resonating from there? I can do all of those things. I can still live my base chakra fully. I can have great sex. I can have a fabulous home. I can be assured of getting through each day well. I can have every identity I've ever created for myself in this lifetime to this date. And I can manage the light and shadow selves of my archetypes, but I don't need to resonate from there with the whole world. I don't need my front door to be in my base chakra. If I'm going to put my front door in my base chakra, then it must be because I, the soul, is aware of rising above survival mechanism and is now living fully in the present moment, and I am practicing being energy and soul here at base chakra. Exactly the same thing applies to the sacral chakra and the solar plexus chakra, all of the human chakras. And we really, nobody needs to have their front door in their heart center either. Nobody needs to have their front door there. So where would you put your front door? Where would we put this front door where I can arrive and wipe my feet on the mat and walk right in? Where would this primary portal be? Saying something, Fatih? You're raising your hand. No? Okay. Ideally, if there is such a thing as an ideal, where would you put this front door that leaves you accessible to the best possible frequencies that inspire and uplift you daily? In the year of living truthfully, the throat chakra might be a great place. If you are focused on your intention and inner sight and having daily insight and staying in balance and staying disciplined, well, the third eye might be the best place. But if you dance as if you're naked in the universe, if you want to dance and do the two-step and you want to know that everything is constantly flowing and becoming and unfolding and that all of the uncertainty is in fact a blessing, then your portal is in the crown chakra. Again, free will applies. This front door doesn't stay open. Everything must come knocking. Accessibility requires permission. It requires agreement. It's not I drift into it and everybody can find me there. It's not like I'm going to stand in the middle of the crowd. Oh, here I am. Do what you like. Accessible. Are you accessible? Aspects of you will remain unseen and private in the world. You know the privacy status everywhere. Privacy settings. You go and change all of those. That's how this works. This is what accessibility is. A conscious, awake choice. And of course we know that we've practiced it in terms of muting groups, opting out of this, stopping that, not doing Facebook, not scrolling through Instagram. We've done these things with technology. And we do these things with our energy in our relationships. Some people phone and you don't answer their call. You're not accessible. There's a choice involved. But energetically, where we are not consciously making a choice every day, how accessible are you? Which chakra has your front door? Have you set a standard for what finds you? So Baba lived at Dwarkamai, and everybody could walk in. Everybody could do whatever they wanted to do. They could come and go 24/7. But people didn't. They didn't just walk in and do their own thing. They respected his space. They respected his presence in that space. There was never a time where Dwarkamai was closed. It was always open. He was always available. He wasn't always accessible. But because of the energy of who he is, nobody just came there and did whatever they pleased there. This is the nature of energy, that it inspires, that it brings forth, it evokes a particular level of respect, a particular level of authority, a particular level of care, and a particular level of integrity. In case of emergency, everybody knew where to find him. And even then, there is a consciousness of what constitutes an emergency. What do we do for ourselves and what do we take to Baba? What do we hand over to him? Because in the handing over, we're saying, I can't manage this. I don't know how to manage this. This is so much bigger than I am. I need an intervention. And so people knew that first and foremost they must honor him by doing their best. They were not skyscrapers. And everything that is given, that is provided, remains available, remains within reach. It is only when we overdo it and overuse it that it starts to close its doors and go into hiding and become out of reach. And we see this in human relationships, where some things become inaccessible because they're abused, overused, whatever the reason, they become inaccessible. Too much, too far. Just like with the foot, it became inaccessible. Couldn't put it down anymore. Had to put it up. It rebelled. It got tired. And these things happen in our human relationships. We must check. At what level are you accessing other people? From where are you accessing them? Now we know there are people who will put their front doors in their base chakra, come knocking on your heart center, But really their front door is at the base chakra, it's where they live. So it's a bit like that person who comes knocking, but when you open the door there's nobody there, and you have to look around and you have to go looking for them, and then when you find them you have to say, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Oh, please, 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 won't you let me serve you? Why does it happen that way? Their frequency doesn't allow for them to stay at the door that they're knocking on. They can prod, they can poke, they can knock once, but they can't stand there waiting for an answer. And then, of course, they're steeped in survival mechanism, all at the base chakra fears, and so they can't leave home for too long. They can't take that risk. So they have to stay there and wait for you to come and find them and sort it out for them. What if, just in case, just in case. How accessible are you? Take a deep breath in, everyone. Place your front door very clearly where I can find it. Put a mat outside and open the door. Let's do some conscious distance healing today.